Let's go over the ingredients you would need in order to make your fruit tarts. You would need your dry beans or rice, Cool Whip, puff pastry sheets, apricot jam, vanilla extract, your non-stick cooking spray, cream cheese, water, 2 types of berries or 3, peaches, kiwi, oranges, butter, confectionate powder, and all-purpose flour. Let's go over the tools you'll need in order to make your fruit tarts. You need a small plate or a small platter. You need a paring knife, aluminum foil, a grater. You need your tart pans with the removable bottom, your mixing bowl, paddle attachment, your mixer, small bowl, medium bowl. You need a cutting board, a large spoon, soup spoons, measuring spoons, measuring cups, and you will also need your piping bag. Okay, so we're going to get started working on your puff pastry crust for your fruit tarts. One of the things I wanted to point out before we even start is if you need to take your peaches, because some peaches are not in season at this moment and you may have gotten frozen peaches, drop them in some water and let them sit so that they can get up to room temperature. Also, with your strawberries, you would want your strawberries, if they're looking kind of like dried out and looking like they're about to die, you want to put them in some ice cold water and let them sit, in which you could do that now and let them sit. Also, just a side note, your cream cheese and your butter and your Cool Whip, they can be brought up to room temperature because you don't want your mixer to work too hard whenever you get ready to mix everything together. So, what we're going to start off with first is our puff pastry sheet. And you want to take that puff pastry, and it should be sitting out too, so it could be nice and soft. So you want to take that puff pastry, and it's 2 in the container, but you want to flour your area so that whenever you get ready to pull out your puff pastries, that they will easily not stick to the bottom of your board. So, and your puff pastries, they kind of already are pre-rolled, and you just remove the paper. I like to use my hands a lot because, you know, you can't feel and touch things if you don't use your hands. So I like to work my dough so that it'll look nice and uniform. You can flip it over and then just work it together. And then after you finish working it together, then you can use your paring knife and kind of cut them in quarters. And once you cut them in quarters, they should fit inside of your baking dishes if you have a small. Now, if you have a large, you can use the whole sheet to go inside of the large. So you would just cut it into 4s. All right, and then we can set these aside. And we can move some of this flour out of our way. And then for your containers, we did 4. So I like to lightly spray my pans so that they don't stick, although they are already non-stick pans. So you just want to lightly spray. You don't want to put any heavy spray because then you're going to actually be frying your pans. So make sure you rub it up to the ends. I would say just make sure you have it very well oiled, each pan. And then you're going to take your puff puff pastry sheet, and you're just gonna lay it in here. And you can see where you may have to stretch it out a little bit so that it will fit. Now, if you have a rolling pin, feel free to roll them out some more. You don't want to roll them out too much because then you're going to start losing the definition of your pastries, of your pastry sheet. And you just want to pull them up so you can see the ends. And I'll get a closer. So you just want to work it in here. And you can let them hang over. You don't want to force it all in there because we're going to blind bake these. And with the rice or the beans, it'll help keep this part nice and stable so that it won't rise up. And then this outside rim here, we're going to trim this off. And we're going to just tuck a little bit on the inside so that they don't shrink as they are baking. So we're going to do this one again. And like I said, if you have a rolling pin, feel free to roll it out a little bit more. But you don't want to roll them out too thin because you don't want it to lose its definition. All right, so place them in the pan. And if you go in at like an angle, you can get more in there. And just press them down a little bit. And then I did 4, but the recipe that I gave you is for a lot of cream cheese filling, so you can have some left over. But if you don't want to make that many, you can always just do 2 and then just make it later, because the cream cheese does not go to waste. The filling does not go to waste. All right, so now you want to take your one more. Now you want to take your aluminum foil, and I like to cut mine into 4s. Depending on how much I roll out of my sheet. So, you're going to take your aluminum foil and you're going to cut them into 4s so that you can have enough to go inside of your pie crust, okay? So, you could take with your cookie cutter, with your knife, and slightly trim the edges off like you would do with a regular pie. And you don't want to you don't have to go directly close to the actual pan because we want to give it some type of a little bit of move to bake and go back on the inside, so you don't have to cut it as close. All right, and then the sides that are out, that are not in the pan, you can just take them and pull them back in and just leave them like tucked slightly over, because what'll happen is when your crust bakes, it's going to shrink a little bit, and you already know that you're going to lose a little bit of your pie crust once it shrinks. So I'll do it again and I'll get you a little bit closer. You're going to take your pie crust, and you're not going to cut right here along this edge, like up and down. You're going to cut close to the edge so that you will have some hangage. Doing this with one hand, hold on. All right, and then you could take and fold it back in so that it'll be nice and taut near your ends. Okay, I'm gonna do this a few more times. This is the easy part, or the most part with the most work, but it's technically easy. You don't have to make the dough. If you are feeling adventurous, you can make your own dough for the crust of your tart. And when you're making your own dough, you're gonna have to make it and let it sit and chill. Another option in order to make no-bake tarts would be to use your graham cracker and butter method. If you would like to go that way, it just depends on time for me, how much time I have in order to get the products out into the customer. If I have time to bake, I bake. If not, then I can use a pre-made dough, or I use the graham cracker method to kind of get them done and out. But it's preferably up to what I have time for and what the customer is asking. All right, so now that we have these in here, we're going to make sure that we put in our rice in our beans so that we can blind bake our puff pastries sheets. And once again, I said that I cut the sheets in 4s just so that we'll have enough room to put in our rice. Now, blind baking, it kind of tricks the pie into letting it think that it's baking the crust, but you're actually just baking to get a foundation at the bottom of your dish. So you will just put this in here, and you're going to pour your beans and your rice in there. And it's just to give it a weight. There are pie weights that you can purchase if you're really serious into baking. You can get pie weights and place them in the inside, and you don't have to use your rice and your beans. But your rice and your beans, they can be reused, so you don't have to feel bad about having a bunch of rice and beans that you're not going to be able to use, okay? So I am going to get the rice and the beans, and I'll give you a close-up of how your pie shell should look. All right. And I don't really have a measurement. I just kind of fill them enough to kind of give it enough weight, and I just move them around. So there's not really a set amount. You don't want your aluminum foil to go on the inside of your crust, because you don't want to bake your beans and rice inside of your crust, okay? Now, for me, I normally take and I throw my beans away or my rice away after I bake my crust, only because I'm just a little nervous about that part of reusing. But you can reuse these if you're going to be baking a lot, or if you do bake a lot, you can have these as your regular beans or rice for your pies. Okay, so we're going to go pop these in the oven, or you can put them in the air fryer, and we'll be right back to put them in the refrigerator and let them cool off and start on the cream cheese mixture. All right, you guys, so I'm back with the cream cheese filling part. So you're going to need to add your cream cheese in, and you could do a whole block. If you decide to make a half of the recipe, you just need half, which that will be your 4 ounces there. But we're going to throw all of these ingredients inside of our mixing bowl, and we're going to whip it up until it's nice and creamy. I like to put in my cream cheese first and my powdered sugar after I get my cream cheese and my butter properly whipped up. And these items have been out for a while, so they are room temperature. So that's 1 stick of butter. All right, and I'm gonna pop this into my mixing bowl, and I'm gonna whip everything together. Okay, so now we're gonna come back in. We're gonna stop our mixer, and we're gonna add our powdered sugar to our cream cheese and butter, and you can see how creamy it is on the inside. And we're gonna add a cup of the powdered sugar in. Let's see. We'll let this mix together, and then we'll come back. Okay, so now we're going to add in our vanilla extract and our Cool Whip and our orange zest. And that's 1 tablespoon of the vanilla extract. Just gives it a little sweeter taste. And then we're gonna add in, it's about a tablespoon of the vanilla, of the orange grate, and this orange or lemon. And then we're gonna fold in our Cool Whip. And you could put the entire container in there if you're making a the recipe. If you're gonna do half, you would do half of the container. You're gonna let this whip up and get nice and creamy, and then we're gonna take and put this into a piping bag or a Ziploc bag so that we can put them on the tart shells. All right, I'm gonna whip this up and we'll be right back. We're gonna take this cream cheese filling, we're gonna put it in our piping bags, in which we're gonna take the cream cheese and we're gonna leave it in our refrigerator for until our pie tarts are done. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to add our berries into our medium-sized pan, and we're gonna add our peaches in our medium-sized pan as well. And you may not need all these peaches. I just put extra peaches in there just in case, so I'll have enough. And then you would just need 2 tablespoons of your apricot jam, so that you can go ahead and put that into your 1 tablespoon of water. And this is 1 tablespoon of apricot jam. And we're gonna let this sit until we get ready to warm it up to place it inside of our on side of our fruit. So okay, so and then we're gonna cut up our strawberries, and we're gonna cut up our kiwi fruit so that we can add them to our berries as well. Okay. So with your kiwi fruit, you want to do this with your paring knife as well. So you're gonna take and you're gonna, well, slice the tops off. And this can also be done with the shaver as well, but I like to peel mine for the full effect. And you can just cut down on each side. Okay, so with these kiwi fruit, we're going to slice them fairly thin so that they can fit in our tarts. So you can slice them left to right. And once we cut these up, we're going to add them to our bowl so that we can add the apricots with them. And you can see how they slice up nicely. Okay. And then for your strawberries, you're going to take the tops off of them. And then you're going to slice them. I would prefer to slice them like this. So you're going to slice them in thin slices because we're going to need the strawberries to go on the top, and that's going to give the look of the entire fruit tart. And you can pop them inside of your dish as well. All right, and then we have one more. Okay, so I'm going to go and warm up the apricot jam, and I'll be right back to assemble our fruit tarts. Okay, so now we're going to start with our assembly of our tarts. But before we get started, I just took the apricot jam mixture with the water out of the microwave. And you can see how loose it is, and it's just kind of runny. And we're going to let this cool off a bit until we can pour it on our fruit. Because if you pour it on too warm, it's going to cause your fruit to start wilting, and we don't want our fruit to wilt and get pre-cooked. So for our piping bag, I filled mine pretty full, but we're gonna take about an inch off. So you just clip that off. And then you're going to work this filling down to the end. One thing I wanted to show you was this is the tart crust that came out of the air fryer. It was cooked at 370 for about 8 to 9 minutes. And then this one, the lighter one, is the one that came out of the oven. And it was cooked for about 15 minutes without the pie weights. I'm going to fill all of them, and then we'll go back to our fruit. So with your piping bag or your Ziploc bag, once you cut it, you could just move some of the weight down. And I'm so used to this that you don't have to fill it up all the way because you don't want it to spout out. But you can kind of work your bag until all of the mixture is inside and you can grip it. So what I do is I take and I just make like a circle, and I just keep going around until it's completely filled in a circular motion. And then we'll take the spoon and we'll go in and even it out. So we'll make sure that it's nice and flat. And if you made the full recipe, you will have more left. So don't feel that you have to use all of the filling at one time. Take the back of your spoon, and then you can just kind of even out your pie filling in your tart crust. And being that this has set, because you got to think you have made it and it has set, so it's good you don't have to put it back in the refrigerator, okay? So let's go back to our fruit. We're going to take our apricot jam and we're going to put it inside of our fruit. And I'm going to move these out of the way. And by the way, this is my go-to cream cheese filling. If I don't want to bake anything and I just want to make a nice cream cheese filling, this is my go-to. So you get the top secret of the go-to. We're going to pour this in. And we're going to use our big spoon to just fold everything in together. And you want your apricot jam to get on all of the pieces of fruit, only because you want it to give it that nice shine and coat, and it also makes the fruit last a little bit longer. Okay, so, and let me give you a close-up of that fruit. You see how it's glistening? That's what I like. So the way you can decorate your tart shells is more than one way, but the way I would do it is I would imagine it in 4 different pieces. So I just kind of make like a plus sign, and then I'll take my berries and I'll put them right here on this side, like so. And then I'll take my kiwi and I'll put them on this side, like so. And then on the other side, I'll take a fruit of my peaches and I'll lay them on the side. Well, if they stay in my hand, like so. And then I'll take my strawberries and I'll just go right down the middle with my strawberries. And you can see where I kind of left this one kind of still together. So you could just take your strawberries and go in there to create your tart. Now, this is the part where you will take it out of the dish to make it more presentable if you're gonna serve this. So you would take your pie tart, and there's a bottom up under here where it kind of lifts out, and you would just lift it out. And being that you pre-sprayed your pan, it should just lift out without any issues. And then here is your tart. Let me get you a closer look in. And you don't have to create it as nice and as beautiful as it is. You could just put all the fruit on top and leave it mixed and just eat it from there. Or you can actually take your time and make beautiful food art with it. So I can't wait to see what you create.